What would you do if your spouse invited you to the wildest party of the year, only to reveal the shocking truth when it's too late? This night will change everything, and someone's going to lose it all. I was absolutely fuming, especially at my wife, Lisa. I'm Michael Miller. How did I know she was mad? Well, she was pressed up against the car door, trying to get as far away from me as possible, with a scowl on her face that could make even the bravest person shudder. Why was she so angry? She had every reason to be. I had ruined her night, and not just any night. I felt terrible for embarrassing my wife of 12 years, the mother of our 3 kids. So, what did I do to mess up so badly? I grabbed the wrong key. You see, the Andersons, our neighbors here in Fort Worth, Texas, throw these extravagant parties. Lisa had been wanting to get an invite for ages, and she finally secured one through a friend of a friend. We'd never been to one of their wild gatherings before, but Lisa, my wife of over a decade, failed to mention an important detail: this party wasn't like the usual ones we'd attended. She didn't tell me beforehand that all the wives were supposed to throw their house keys into a bowl. Then, the husbands would blindly pick a key and spend the night with the corresponding wife. As the night progressed, I realized what was about to happen, and I lost it. I had never been this furious with Lisa before. I grabbed her by the arm and pulled her into the kitchen. Did you know this party was going to end like this? I demanded. She smirked at me. Yeah, I did. And you didn't think to tell me before we showed up? I shot back. No, she said casually, because I knew you'd never agree unless you were already here. I wouldn't have agreed, and I always have a choice, Lisa. We're leaving, I said. We can't leave now, Michael. It'd be rude. Plus, it's only for one night, something exciting to spice up our marriage, she protested. That's not the kind of excitement I need. We're going, I repeated, more firmly. Lisa tried to argue, but I let go of her arm and walked up to the bowl filled with keys. I wasn't told about this part of the party, I declared loudly to the crowd gathered around the bowl. I'm not sharing my wife with anyone. I sifted through the keys until I found ours, the one with the small silver keychain we got when we first moved into our house, and held it up for everyone to see. I wasn't informed of these rules beforehand, and I don't believe in betraying my marriage vows. They mean everything to me. Some people grumbled, while others exchanged knowing glances, but I didn't care. I turned and locked eyes with Lisa, who was flushed with embarrassment. Lisa, I said, you have a decision to make right now. You can come home with me and forget about this nonsense, or you can stay and never come back again. I'm leaving. All eyes turned to Lisa, who hesitated for a moment before speaking up. I'm sorry for my husband's behavior, she said to the group. I'd love to stay, but I better leave under the circumstances. With anger and reluctance, she followed me out to the car. You are such a selfish jerk, she shouted at me as soon as we got in. How could you embarrass me like that in front of everyone? We'll never get invited back again. Embarrass you, Lisa? I shot back. What about how you embarrassed me by not telling me about your plan to be with someone else tonight? Well, you were going to be with another wife, so we both could have had fun, she said, crossing her arms. I don't want to be with another woman, Lisa, I replied, feeling my frustration rise. I've always reserved that for you, and it hurts after 12 years of marriage to hear that you want to be with someone else. It was just going to be for one night, Michael, she said defensively. After all the years we've spent together, it's just one night with someone else. Don't you think I deserve that after being a faithful wife for so long? Honestly, no, I don't, I responded. I can't believe you're even saying this. But clearly, this means a lot to you, doesn't it? Yes, it does, Michael, she admitted, turning to look at me. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. I'm more than just a wife and mother. I want some adventure, to feel desirable again. Just for a few hours. I suddenly pulled over to the side of the road, making a sharp U-turn as I raced back towards the Andersons' house. Lisa gasped and grabbed the door. "What the hell are you doing, Michael?" she demanded. "If spending a night with another man means that much to you, Lisa, then go ahead. Get out of the car," I said, my tone cold. "Go ahead and enjoy your night with some random guy. I hope he's everything you want him to be. Michael, this is something new, an adventure." "I thought you'd understand," she replied, reaching for the door handle. "You're perfect for me, but you know we both have to participate. It's not like I can go in there alone." "I've already told you I want no part of this," I said sharply. "I've never cheated on you, and I'm not starting now." "Cheated? It's not cheating if it's just for one night, and it's something we both do," she said, her voice softening. "I'll say it again. I'm not interested. I've been faithful to you for over a decade, and I won't cross that line," I replied. Her voice dropped to a whisper, "Would you pick me up tomorrow morning, from wherever I end up?" "No chance," I said, staring straight ahead. "I'm sure your new guy will give you a ride after spending the night with you." "You're making this sound so bad, Michael," she said, tears starting to well up in her eyes. "He won't be my lover, just someone to be close to for a night. I love you, Michael. You're the only man for me." "Do you really believe that, Lisa?" I asked, incredulous. "There's no way you could love me and still want to go through with this." "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice filled with disbelief. "You just want someone new for intimacy, right? You want some guy to do what only I should be doing." "That's not fair, Michael," she said, her tears spilling over. "You know I'm on birth control, so I won't get pregnant. It's just one night with someone new. It'll be thrilling, and I won't let you ruin this night for me," she added, her voice firm now. "I just want a little adventure, and you're not going to stop me. Got it? Tomorrow morning, I'll be back, and I'll make you forget all about this," she said with forced confidence. "You'll still want me, Michael. I'll make sure of it. I won't desire you anymore after you've let another man have what I thought was mine alone," I said, my voice filled with hurt and betrayal. "Now you're being ridiculous, Michael," she said, exasperated. "I belong to you, and you'll still want me. I'll make sure of it." "Lisa, listen to me," I said, my voice firm with urgency. "If you go back into that house, we're done. Your one night will cost you your marriage and your family." "No, Michael, it won't," she said, her voice shaky but still defiant. "We're married, and we'll stay that way. We're meant to be together. I love you, and I know you love me. We'll get through this, I promise." "You're breaking my heart, Lisa," I said, my voice strained with emotion. "Stop being so dramatic, Michael," she said, now annoyed. "Think of it as sending me on an adventure." "It's an adventure for you, but it's the end for us," I said, my voice heavy with finality. She opened the car door and hesitated for a moment, her hand gripping the handle tightly. "I'll see you tomorrow morning, Michael," she said, her voice trembling with false confidence. I sadly shook my head, and as soon as she closed the door, I hit the accelerator and sped off, leaving skid marks on the road. As I glanced in the rearview mirror, I saw her standing there on the curb, completely shocked, her mouth open in disbelief. She hadn't moved when I turned the corner, and she disappeared from sight. I hoped she would call me right away, admitting she was wrong and asking me to come back for her. But she didn't. She probably thought I'd be angry for a couple of days, and then she could smooth things over with an apology or two. Well, she was completely wrong. My dad always used to say that if a woman is even considering cheating, she's already crossed a dangerous line. And if a married woman seriously contemplates it, she's already broken her vows. As much as it hurt, Lisa had ended our marriage, and it was time to face the reality. The real heartbreak was thinking about our 3 kids, 10-year-old Sarah, 9-year-old Rachel, and 5-year-old Ethan. How could I imagine life without seeing them every day? But I couldn't let Lisa's actions go without consequences. The kids were staying with my mom for the weekend, giving me time to figure out my next steps. I drove around aimlessly for a while, hoping Lisa would call and ask me to come back for her, but as the hours ticked by, it became clear she'd made her choice. I finally made a decision and drove home. Just as I pulled into the driveway, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, half expecting it to be Lisa, but the caller ID showed a different name. I answered anyway. There was loud music and laughter in the background, and a man's voice cut through the noise. "Hey, Mike, it's Brian from the party. You left. Lisa gave me your number. She's super excited about tonight and wants you to be part of it too. You're one lucky guy, every guy here is hoping they'll get her key. She keeps saying someone's in for an unforgettable night. Come back and join us, there are plenty of ladies here who'd love to have fun with you." "Go to hell, Brian," I growled, my voice heavy with anger. "And screw everyone at your stupid party, including my cheating wife. I hope you all suffer the consequences." I hung up and stormed inside. It took me less than 20 minutes to pack 2 suitcases with enough clothes for a week. I grabbed my laptop, some toiletries, and threw everything into the car. Then I dug through the drawer where we kept important papers and found our wedding license. I ripped it into pieces, smashed my wedding ring with a hammer, and placed the flattened remains on Lisa's pillow. Locking the door behind me, I drove off into the night. I needed to clear my head, so I headed out of town, hoping to find a motel where I could lie low for a while. Just a few miles outside of Fort Worth, I spotted a rundown place called the Lone Star Inn. It wasn't much to look at, but it had parking in the back, which would keep my car hidden from any prying eyes. After parking, I walked to the nearby gas station, bought a 6-pack of beer, and returned to my room. I cracked open the first bottle and flipped on the TV, trying to drown out the anger boiling inside me. After a couple of beers, I felt a bit calmer. As I opened my third bottle, my phone buzzed again. It was Lisa, but I let it go straight to voicemail. I wasn't ready to talk to her, not after everything. "Michael, stop being so dramatic," her voice came through the voicemail. "Brian told me what you said. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I've told you before, it's just for one night. I'm trying something new, and that doesn't make me a bad person. I promise, even if I'm sore tomorrow, I'll make it up to you when I get home. Since you took our key from the bowl, they made me a new one. A guy named Greg got it, and he's really nice. He's married with kids, just like us. Since you took off, I came back to our place with him. His wife and her partner are here too, but they're in another room, so we won't hear each other when things heat up. You know how loud I can get." She giggled. "Look, I know you're upset, but I promise nothing's going to happen that we haven't done together. Greg and I are keeping things simple, especially since it's my first time with someone else. He'll drop me off tomorrow morning, and I'll make sure to clean up before coming home. No sloppy seconds, I swear. Good night, lover. I'll see you in the morning." I felt sick to my stomach. I had never realized I was married to someone so incredibly naive. Lisa had always been a bit clueless, but that was part of her charm. Now, her cluelessness had cost her our marriage, and maybe even her relationship with the kids. There was no way she thought I would ever take her back after this. I was angry, hurt, and humiliated, and Lisa didn't seem to care. I knew I should have ignored her message, but I couldn't. I called her back, and after the third ring, she picked up. "Hey, Michael. Greg and I just got comfortable in bed, so I can't talk long," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Shut up, Lisa," I said, my voice laced with fury. "This might be the last time you ever hear from me. You have no idea what you've done, but you'll find out soon enough. Enjoy your time with Greg, because the consequences are going to be worse than you can imagine. Once he touches you, we're done. Do you hear me? Done." I never thought I'd say it, but I hate you more right now than I ever loved you, I continued, my voice thick with pain and betrayal. I can't wait to be done with you completely. My lawyer will contact you next week. I hung up, and within seconds, she called again. I let it go to voicemail. Michael, why are you acting like this? Lisa's voice cracked through the message, sounding like she was on the verge of tears. How could you say those things to me? I'm your wife. Can't you just let me have this one night? Greg and I just started, and now you're ruining it for me. I don't know if I can enjoy being with him now. We're not getting divorced. I'll be home in the morning, and we can talk this out. I'd come home now, but I promised Greg I'd stay with him tonight. Please understand, I have to do this. He got my key, and I promised him he could have me. He really wants me right now, oh, God, yes, please, try to understand. See you in the morning, Michael. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I called her back, but this time it rang several times before going to voicemail. It was clear that Greg was with her, and she was enjoying it. From your last voicemail, I can tell Greg is already with you, and you're loving it, I said, my voice cold and full of disgust. You can spend the night with him, feel all the new sensations you want, but you couldn't keep your promise to me, the man who's loved you and stayed faithful to you for over 12 years. I don't recognize you anymore. You won't see me in the morning, and maybe you'll never see me again, but you'll get those divorce papers next week. And I'm charging you with adultery. Greg is doing what only I should have ever been allowed to do, and now, you're officially a cheater. Go ahead and cheat with any man you want from now on, but you'll never be with me again. Lisa didn't return my call. I knew how focused she got during intimacy, she entered a world where nothing else mattered except her and the man she was with. I was sure she and Greg were fully absorbed in each other by now. I finished the 6-pack of beer, but the alcohol did little to numb the pain. Eventually, I fell asleep, tears still streaming down my face. I woke up a few hours later, and reality hit me hard. My wife had taken a lover, and now I had to figure out how to protect my kids, remove her from my life, and maybe even make those at the party suffer a bit. We lived in a small town, and Texas law allowed divorce based on adultery. I could avoid paying alimony and maybe even get custody of my kids. I needed a good lawyer, and I needed one fast. After a quick shower, I grabbed my phone and called my mom. At 7:30 a.m., I filled her in on everything that had happened. She was as shocked as I was. She promised to keep the kids with her for the weekend and not say anything to them. I told her I'd pick them up once I had a plan. I knew it was likely Lisa would get custody of the kids, at least initially. Despite her infidelity, she had always been a good mother. But I couldn't let her betrayal slide, especially when it affected the children. After I hung up with my mom, I went to a diner down the road called Joe's Grill for breakfast. As I parked and headed toward the entrance, my phone rang again. It was Lisa, but I ignored it. This time, she didn't leave a message. Instead of leaving a message, Lisa called back repeatedly until she finally left one, her voice filled with frustration and tears. Michael, answer the damn phone. What do you mean you may never see me again? What's all this talk about divorce papers? You can't leave me, Michael. We have 3 beautiful kids who need both of us. Why did you tear up our marriage license and smash your wedding ring? That ring meant forever. I gave it to you on our wedding day, and you promised to wear it always. I knew you'd be upset, but I never thought you'd go this far. I love you, Michael, but I really needed that night with Greg. He made me feel alive again. But you're still the only man I love. I know how to make this up to you. Please come home so I can show you how much you mean to me. Her voice grew weaker as she started to cry again. Why can't you understand? I just needed one night with someone else to feel desired, to feel wanted. It was only a moment, Michael. Nothing more. Please, talk to me. You and the kids mean everything to me. The voicemail ended, and I stood outside Joe's grill, stunned by what I had just heard. Had Lisa been harboring these feelings for years, and they only now surfaced in her late 30s? It didn't make sense to me. Lisa was still as beautiful as ever, standing at 5 feet 6 inches, weighing 135 pounds, with chestnut hair that fell just below her shoulders, and light brown eyes that always sparkled with energy. Even after having 3 kids, her figure remained impressive. Although her hips had widened a little, she still turned heads everywhere we went. So what was this nonsense about needing to feel desired by another man? I'd always shown her how much I loved and wanted her. I'd brought her flowers, taken her out on date nights at least once a week, and told her every day how beautiful she was. Our intimacy had always been fulfilling, or so I thought. We made love regularly, and I never let her feel unsatisfied. I felt my appetite disappear, but I went into the diner anyway. I found a corner booth and ordered scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. As the waitress poured the coffee, I stared at the cup in front of me, my mind racing. I barely touched my breakfast, but I drank cup after cup of coffee, trying to sort through my emotions. I'd never felt so lost, empty, and devastated. People always say that when they hit rock bottom, they understand the depths of despair. I finally understood what that meant. The only thing that kept me going was the thought of my kids. They needed me. I couldn't let Lisa's betrayal destroy me. I had to push through for their sake, even if I felt like I was drowning in heartbreak. Throughout the day, Lisa called at least 20 more times, but I let each call go to voicemail. In her messages, she pleaded for me to understand, to give her a chance, but she never once apologized for what she had done. Instead, she insisted that it was something she needed. She described how they'd been together multiple times that night and even one more time in the morning. She admitted she'd been worried I overheard the first time, right as Greg had done his job. She hoped I hadn't heard too much. Hearing her speak so carelessly about it only deepened the wound. But on the bright side, her voicemails gave me solid audio evidence of her affair to use in court. While I wasn't sure if the recordings would hold up, they were more than enough proof for me. I was determined to find a lawyer first thing Monday morning. Later that evening, I decided to visit my kids at my mom's house. She had told me earlier that Lisa had already called her to check on the children and to ask if I'd be coming by. Mom assured her that I was fine but had been dealing with everything in my own way. When Lisa started to cry over the phone, saying I didn't understand her, my mom gave her some tough love. She told Lisa that no man would ever understand his wife openly flaunting an affair right in his face. Lisa asked if she should come pick up the kids, but my mom gently suggested that they stay with her for a few more days until things settled down. When I arrived, the kids were happy to see me, but I could tell they were curious about why their mom wasn't with me. I told them that she had some important things to take care of and that they would be staying with Grandma for a little while longer. We spent the evening playing board games and eating dinner together before I kissed them goodnight and drove back to my motel. Tomorrow, I knew, would be a big day. I had a lot of decisions to make. Before calling it a night, I took one more drive past the house. Tears welled up in my eyes as I drove down our street, seeing the place that had once been the cornerstone of our family life. I cried for what had been lost, knowing things would never be the same again. When I pulled up to the curb, I noticed that there were no unfamiliar cars in the driveway, although Lisa's SUV was there. I guessed Greg had gone home, or perhaps she didn't want him there tonight. Only the kitchen light was on, and for a moment, I wondered if she was sitting alone, thinking about what she had done. I parked a block away and walked back toward the house, unable to resist the urge to see what she was doing. Peeking through the kitchen window, I saw her sitting at the table. An empty bottle of wine sat next to her, tissues scattered around her as she cried into her hands. Her hair was a mess, and her makeup was smeared across her tear-streaked face. For a fleeting moment, I felt sorry for her. But then I remembered what she had done, and all sympathy vanished. I wanted to march in and confront her, to unleash all the anger I was holding back. But instead, I turned and walked back to my car, driving away without another glance. Maybe she was starting to realize the gravity of her actions, but if she wanted pity, she could call Greg. Monday morning came quickly, and I had a full agenda ahead of me. I went back to Joe's Grill for breakfast, this time finishing my eggs and toast without hesitation. I knew I needed to get my strength up for what was coming. I called my mom again to check in on the kids, telling them how much I loved them and that I would see them soon. I also called my work to inform them that I would be handling personal matters for a few days. My executive assistant, Jennifer, sensed something was wrong, but I assured her I would explain everything later. For now, I needed time. During my final year in college, I had shared an apartment with two close friends, David and Nick. We had formed a strong bond, and although we didn't see each other often, we had stayed connected over the years. I called David first, asking if both of them could meet me for drinks that evening. I needed their advice, and David immediately agreed to reach out to Nick. We set a time to meet at a local bar by the beach called Sandy's Tavern. I arrived early, and not long after, Nick showed up, followed by David. We greeted each other with the familiarity of old friends, and after finding a table on the patio, we ordered drinks and made a toast. "So, what's going on, Mike?" David asked, his voice full of concern. Your call sounded serious. Lisa cheated on me, I said, bluntly, letting the words hang in the air. I watched as their faces registered shock, and I proceeded to tell them the whole story from start to finish. "Wow, man, that's rough," David said, shaking his head. "I can't even wrap my mind around her doing something like that." "Same here," Nick chimed in. "I never would have expected this from her." "She went ahead with no shame or regret," I said, shaking my head in disbelief. "And the worst part? She still thinks I'm overreacting." "So, what's your plan?" Nick asked, taking a sip of his beer. "I want a divorce," I replied, my voice filled with determination. "And more than anything, I want to fight for custody of my kids." "Getting custody might be tough, Mike," Nick cautioned. "Unless she's proven to be a neglectful mother, or if she's bringing random guys home while the kids are there, the courts usually favor the mother. If she's generally been a good mom, then you'll likely have a harder time getting full custody." "I get that," I said, nodding. "But I need to try. I can't let her actions go without consequences." "What about finances?" David chimed in. "Lisa stays home with the kids, right? And you're probably making a solid six-figure income. What's in your accounts, savings, checking, investments, retirement funds?" "When you add it all up, it's probably over $700,000, maybe even $800,000. The court will most likely split that in half and give Lisa the house," Nick added. "But, if you can prove she cheated, you might avoid paying alimony. Do you know any good divorce lawyers?" I asked. As luck would have it, Nick did. He mentioned that one of the partners at his firm, Catherine Grant, was a top family law attorney in Texas. She had a reputation for handling tough divorce cases and knew how to navigate custody battles. He offered to set up a meeting for me, and I gladly accepted. We raised our glasses in another toast and had a few more drinks before calling it a night. As I drove back to the Lone Star Inn, I felt better than I had in days. I had a plan, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a sense of control returning. That night, my phone rang again. Seeing the caller ID, I knew it was Lisa. After a moment of hesitation, I pulled over to answer. "What do you want, Lisa?" I asked bluntly, getting straight to the point. "What do you think I want, Michael?" she replied, her voice soft. "I want my husband back. I want you home with me and the kids where you belong." "Well, that's not going to happen," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Your little adventure with Greg makes that impossible." She began to cry. "Michael, don't say that. It was just one night. After 12 years, you're really going to throw it all away over one night? You threw it away the moment you went to bed with him, I said coldly. That's adultery, Lisa. I warned you repeatedly, and you didn't listen. Now you have to face the consequences. Please, Michael, I love you, she pleaded through tears. It was a mistake. I'm sorry. But I love you and the kids. Don't do this to us. You did this to us, I said, my voice filled with pain. You tore our family apart because you wanted something exciting for yourself. Now, you'll see what happens when someone crosses that line. I hung up before she could say anything else. The toughest part of this entire ordeal was that I still had feelings for Lisa. Maybe a part of me always would. But I couldn't stay married to someone who had broken my trust. I couldn't stay with someone who had no regard for the sanctity of our marriage. By Friday night, I knew the divorce process was about to start. But curiosity got the best of me, and I drove past the Andersons' house again to see if Lisa's car was there. It wasn't, but I knew she could have gone with someone else. They had made exceptions for her before. I spotted the van Nick's reporter friend was using to stake out the house. I wished him luck in uncovering the details that would blow the lid off their little secret society. The following afternoon, I got a call from Nick's friend. He told me that he had taken over 100 photos of couples entering and leaving the Andersons' house. He recognized several prominent figures from our town, including business owners, but noticed that different couples left the house than had entered. He confirmed that Lisa was not among those photographed. Before we hung up, he asked if he could hint in the article that a marriage had ended because of the wife-swapping parties, leaving children to deal with the fallout of their parents' divorce. I agreed, as long as no names were mentioned. The article would be published in the Sunday edition, and it promised to make waves. The article hit the front page on Sunday, complete with photos of couples entering and leaving the Andersons' house. Their faces were blurred, but in a small town like Fort Worth, people recognized the cars and clothing. The story stretched across several pages, with detailed accounts of the secret wife-swapping parties. It didn't take long for the town to buzz with gossip. Business owners lost customers, and some couples ended up filing for divorce. Ministers were interviewed about the moral decline, and civic leaders quickly distanced themselves from the scandal. For me, it was a small victory. The pain of losing my wife was still fresh, but seeing others face the consequences for their actions felt like a small bit of justice. Even if people realized I'd been cheated on, I didn't care. The satisfaction of watching the fallout was enough for now. Lisa, on the other hand, kept trying to reach me over the next several months. She sent texts, left voicemails, and even tried showing up at my mom's house, hoping to win me back. But I stayed firm in my decision. The divorce went through smoothly, largely because she didn't contest it. I secured joint custody of our 3 kids, which meant that we'd split time with them, alternating months and weekends. It wasn't ideal, but it was the best arrangement for now. Since Lisa didn't fight the divorce, I decided not to share the incriminating voicemails with her family or friends. There was no need to rub salt in the wound, at least, not for the kids' sake. As for the other couples involved in the Andersons' key parties, some left town, unable to face the backlash. Others went through divorces, their families falling apart. It was a fitting consequence for what they'd done. Lisa began dating again not long after the divorce was finalized. I wasn't sure if she truly understood why her actions had hurt me so deeply. She might have moved on, but it was clear that her actions had permanently altered our relationship. For a while I felt sorry for her, but that quickly faded. Her choices had destroyed our marriage, and she had to live with the consequences. I, too, started dating again, but I was cautious. I hadn't found anyone I was ready to settle down with yet. A couple of women suggested moving in together, but I was hesitant to give anyone the key to my house again, at least, not for a while. It had been a tough year, but I came out stronger on the other side. I learned a lot about myself, and what I wanted in a future partner. Most importantly, I realized I could handle anything life threw at me, as long as I had my kids by my side. I knew I'd never forget what Lisa had done, but I also knew I couldn't let it define my future. I had to move forward, not just for myself, but for my kids. They were my priority. One weekend, while sitting on the beach, watching my kids play in the sand, I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like things would be okay. As long as I had my family and my closest friends, I could handle whatever life brought next. I breathed in the salty sea air, smiled, and realized that the future still held possibilities, even if the past had been painful. There was hope beyond the hurt. I watched the sun slowly sink into the ocean, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. It was a beautiful reminder that even after the darkest days, there were still sunsets worth watching. As the sun disappeared below the horizon, I gathered my kids and headed back to the car. Tomorrow would bring a new day, and I was ready to face it with strength. I was a survivor, and no betrayal, no matter how devastating, could ever break me. I started the car, driving down the highway, letting the wind blow through the windows. As I glanced in the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of myself. I looked older, yes, but also wiser and stronger. I turned up the radio and sang along to the music, allowing the worries of the past to fade away into the night. For the first time in a long time, I felt free.